Om Samartha Sadguru Sri Sainathaya Namaha. Sai Baba and his teachings. Chapter 4. Sadhana outside hours of meditation 1. That a part of the preparation which is outlined in the previous chapter clears our worldly life of activity of all adventures, hopes, fears, longings, and frustrations. The field of life is cleared of the weeds, leaving the plants in the crop free to draw upon all the attention we are capable of by way of living as the play. We have also hinted at the new attitude that develops in us towards our work in consequence of this clearing. Baba, the real master, has not left it at that. Our activity or work is not to remain a mere implementation or practice of what we have learnt. It is but for a much more activity and positive content in the form of discovery of realization, and this shall occupy the present chapter. The Bhagavad Gita says that of thousands of people who turn to the Spirit of God, many do so in the hope that they will be through from their problems of life, like the disease and poverty. Some others turn to God in the hope of fulfillment of their worldly wishes. A fewer number of them wish to know what all is about, and that only a minute fraction seek enlightenment. It even says that out of thousands of seekers, only one strives for perfection, and out of thousands of such, only one succeeds. This is what Christ meant when he said, "Many are called, but a few are chosen." Sai Baba has pointed this truth beautifully in the parable of the mango tree in full bloom. The depth and full implication of these statements can be realized if we too remember that all the fake gurus and godmen belong to the first two categories of those who crave for freedom from sorrow and those who pray for fulfillment of their material wishes. How can such teachers lead us anywhere? If we look around us with wide open eyes, we find this grim truth. In all its tragedy and irony, the foster body of us seekers around us together have missed them many. But after their initial effervescence of overzealous faith in some teacher or form of a sadhana have got dispirited. Some of them have repeatedly tried their luck with different teachers and forms of sadhana. Many of them present their poor figures no longer for any dynamism, but make another effort. Whether there is a hell beyond death or not, we do not know. But in these poor specimens, we can be sure that just as there could be a kingdom of a hell on earth, for that whatever spiritual jargon they were fed has made them determine that worldly life cannot bestow fulfillment. They cannot return to it wholeheartedly, but their repeated failures and frustrations in their spiritual endeavors have made them wonder whether there is any way to such a thing at all. They cannot give it up, nor do they have the dynamism and faith necessary to put up a fight for it. They may succeed in playing the roles of devotees. Their failures, which every teacher and his teachings makes them find an error in each of them. They have nothing to offer, but the majority are too honest to do that. They silently suffer. The problem which these people face is that they have not found anyone capable of helping them out. Any teacher who, like Sai Baba, can assure them of his constant presence by their side, whose presence like his could wipe out all fears and anxieties. From their example, we ought to know how dangerous a spiritual adventure could be if it is not started with the contact of the real teacher. If instead of casting their lot in the woodwinds as they did, and instead of rushing too hastily to the spiritual trademark gurus, they had made a modest beginning with the study of Sri Guru Charitra and Guru Gita, their zeal and energies would have been conserved for them for the proper occasion. It would have been a sort of ever increasing dynamism and zeal. From this, it is easy to understand why the Christ has so repeatedly warned against the false prophets and false teachers. Indian mystics sage Bhartrhari and Adi Sankaracharya did not spare them. The poignance of the crime of such false teachers is brought out by an old Indian story. Sri Rama Sri Rama was about to take all his people with him in a divine aeroplane. A sickly dog with lice and ticks all over also wanted him to be taken along. Noticing that it was a strange creature that could speak like a human being, he questioned it about the cause of his present plight. He stated that in its previous life, it was a false teacher that deceived a large number of innocent people by his false teachings. In consequence, he stated all those misdirected disciples were taking a vengeance on him in this life in the form of lies and ticks. As we have stated, the real teacher can furnish a positive dynamic content of realization almost in every incident of his disciple's life. For the common man, the mere weeding out from the field of life is not enough. The crop has to be watered, manured, and cared for daily and even hourly. Straying cattle and wandered birds have to be repeatedly driven away. When does we interpret this analogy in terms of the sadhana in daily life? Sadhana or spiritual discipline is the regular means of attaining the lasting contentment. Contentment is a real only when it could permeate the other aspects and moments of our life. This becomes possible only when the whole of one's life is transformed into sadhana. That is, when sadhana is not limited to the hours of formal meditation or deep reflection. Novices on the spiritual path fail to realize this. They arduously try to meditate during fixed hours but lose sight of it in the hours of their mundane life. The impact of a formal meditation may continue to underline the rest of their worldly life in the form of a subtle peace, but equally well, the impact of the worldly incidents will also continue and reach hours of meditation. Therefore, true meditation is possible only through true understanding of things within and without and their relationships. By implication, life outside the hours of meditation in their case is based on erroneous understanding. Even their efforts to impress upon their hearts the full significance of Allah Malik and giving up all desires is bound to be limited by their present limited average spiritual capacities. Therefore, the major portion of their daily life to that extent proves to be the negative counterpart of meditation, and in the common life of the worldly man, it predominates. The consequent accumulated mass of a false understanding is bound to counteract the process of meditation. As a means of escaping such a plight, several seekers do the mistake of trying to prolong the formal meditation. In their excessive zeal, they may even venture to prolong it all through the day, taking time off their worldly life whenever possible. This is more commonly done by those who renounce worldly life too early before they are ripe. Soon it becomes a matter of compulsion, which is bound to be counterproductive, instead of giving a matter of a spontaneous joy. Eventually, most of them stop meditation altogether, either prematurely or for different spells of time, or they may resort to mechanical chanting of divine name throughout the day. For most people, even that becomes mechanical and they come to feel nothing divine about those names, that they are mere names. We have said that real and sustained meditation can result only from correct understanding of things, creature, and their relations. By understanding, we do not mean a momentary compulsion of recognition that may last for a few months only when it is stable if we achieve it. But this does not happen at a time. First flashes of understanding have to come to us more frequently and with greater intensity, and through familiarization, which gradually settles down into a stable state. Very few can bring this about by their own efforts. It is here that the real teacher has a positive role to play. The chapters in Sai Baba the Master, which describes him as all gods, saints, creatures, and things, along with the chapter on his omniscience. Somehow, in countless ways, he has opened the floodgates of a new insight and understanding to his devotees even during the stray moments of their common living. They were forced to recognize that he was in all the creatures, that He was ever with them, fully aware of what they do and think. In a matchless way, he continues to do so even after his Mahasamadhi. These experiences, this realization of his omniscience in all things, which we called the positive content earlier. A false guru, out of his subtle jealousy and self justification, may try to brush this aside as a cheap miracle mongering. The straight rejoinder to such one is, let him do it if he can. If this allegation be true, then God indeed is the worst of miracle mongers. This, in such a case, it is a better to follow such a miracle monger than follow the monger miracle. That is, the man who can miraculously present the truth as a falsehood and his own falsehood as truth. It should be remembered that Sai Baba never claimed all those miracles for himself. He always lived and referred to himself as a poor begging fakir and sometimes even as a humble slave of his devotees. He behaved though he was too small a man even to criticize the truly false gurus. Further, it should be remembered that he was revered as the Kohinoor among the saints by most of his contemporaries, but he on his part was humble enough to acknowledge the greatness of other great Mahatmas like Tukaram, Baba Tajuddin and Guru Siddharuda. We hardly hear any of these self styled teachers approving of any other teacher except, if at all, patronizingly or condescendingly. They do not even remember the watchwords of Christ: judge not lest thou be judged. But on our part, in our own interest and for the love of God, we have to judge the teacher as Christ said, judge the tree by its fruit. If there is anything else that can settle the mysterious way in which Sai Baba fed his devotees with this positive content in the events of day to day life, then we can dispense with him. To say that we can provide our own positive content may be possible in only one way, that is, by the devout study of his life and teaching. Any other way is only like what the three companions of Sai Baba did in the dense forest. When we so study the life of Baba even today, we soon find that the event of our life are controlled and purposeful. When we are constantly reminded of him, the memories of his Leelas sustain us during the intervals between similar experiences of our own. The subtle master he is, with perfect economy. He overwhelms us with such experiences at unexpected moments. A little thought will enable us to know that such random and surprising action on his side is much more effective than similar experiences coming to us every moment. The latter course would unhinge our minds. It will be like forcing the bud open before it is mature, more like thrusting too much food down one's throat than he could swallow to take. We have already noted the case of the beady vendor. The master plays hide and seek with us. So to play, he manifests his working when we least expect it and generally when we need it the most, but are too confused to pray for it. Sometimes he does so when we ask for it. At other times he keeps us waiting for it. Again, as we wait for one type of manifestation, he manifests it in a different corner of our life and in manner different from our expectation. Later in retrospect, we find that his working is wisest. It is this kind of divine working which the Jews and Christians described God as the loving God. It is silly to ask whether Sai Baba is God or not. We have never seen God so that we can decide it. It is a much wiser to decide our own fate. A thirsty man looks for a tumbler of water but does not bother to know all about its source. Through constantly study of his life, we like to associate everything and creature that see with him. Everything reminds us of him, maybe as his form or as his name, without any effort on our part. we learn to live in very frequent awareness of Him. All the hours outside former meditation thus get transformed into sadhana. Sadhana becomes the way. The most wonderful part of it is that even those of us who just resort to Him for the fulfillment of their wishes or the removal of their suffering are slowly led into this way by the study of His life. Judge the tree by its fruit. We see that Sai Baba is alone among the real teachers who adopted such a way. It sounds funny and ridiculous. If any teacher implies that he is better without doing better, there was the classic case of Jawahar Ali who claimed that Sai Baba was his disciple. In after times, there are other who claimed a higher state than this Sadguru and some who claimed that they are he. Again, we have to judge the tree by its fruit. Only those who study his life can understand and follow his teachings. You are in me and I am in you. Go on contemplating this. You will come to experience it. Only such can understand the less known saying of Jesus. Wherever there are two, they are not without God. And where there is a one alone, I say, I am with him. Rise soon, and there thou shalt find. Cleave the wood, and there I am. Let not him who seeks cease until he finds, and when he finds, he shall be acknowledged. He shall reach the kingdom, and having reached kingdom, he shall rest. The Christ too won the hearts of his disciples by enabling them to know that he knew them much better than we are known of him. The episode of Sai Baba's 72 hours of death and revival tallies it into from the raising of Jesus Christ on the third day after crucifixion. No wonder that my learned brother Paul Rebs write, Sai Baba the Master amply proves. Spirit is more alive than matter. It is impossible for me and to anyone to comprehend Jesus' life without reading Sai Baba the Master. Surely Shirdi Sai is the greatest of great. With such guidance, is it possible of error? Look at me, and I look to you, and I never leave my man in the middle. I will take him right up to the goal. Many have said so, but with Baba, we are not called to take the word and trust. We are only asked to trust our experience, and He Himself furnishes all that is necessary for us to live up to that instruction. For as we follow Him, we learn to gradually realize the truth of His statement. All that you see taken together is myself. He who thinks that Baba is only at Shirdi has totally failed to see Baba. This leads us to understand why he said, if anybody is angry with another, he wounds me to the quick. If anyone abuses another, I feel pain. If anyone bravely endures the abuse, I feel highly pleased. Even though we try to live up to this, we face situations in which we cannot do so. What can we do? What we can do and what to do. The Master himself has explained. How we can face the various situations in our life is explained by him in all other sayings under the heading of Sai Baba's teaching. Om Samartha Sadguru Sri Sai Nathaya Namaha.